Northeastern New Jersey as the waves continue to pound the coast, but as reported earlier by Rick Griffin, who is standing by live, and we'll talk to him in a moment, we have heard of little beach erosion. But the problem here is this is typically a day in July where there are hundreds of thousands of people combing the beaches, just ready for a little R&R, and today, unfortunately, with Bertha around, that is not the case. Let's go to the latest advisory. Good afternoon. As we update you on Tropical Storm Bertha, we'll show you the winds here, first of all, northward and eastward, but we still have some very heavy rain back in eastern Pennsylvania, across northern New Jersey, and believe it or not, folks, there has been heavier rain inland than there has been on the coastline, and we'll try to add some insight to that in just a moment. Standing by live, as I mentioned earlier, in Highlands, New Jersey, our very own Rick Griffin, who has dealt with some wind-whipped rains and even some sand-whipped rains. And Rick, how you feeling now?
Well, Jim, it's not too bad right now. In fact, about 10-15 minutes ago, the wind really slackened off. I thought maybe the center of circulation was getting closer to us. However, the wind's picked up a little bit again, and the rain is starting to fall a bit heavier.
It's off to your south, Rick, and it's heading closer and closer to the coast. It's near Tom's River now. But we do still have, north and east of the center, several bands. I mean, you mentioned earlier you had some heavy rain, then it was calm, heavy rain, then it was calm. What about the beaches? Has there been any change in their condition?
I'm sorry, say that again, Jim?
The beaches, has there been any change in their condition? Have you noticed any more erosion as the tide's coming in, or?
I think the surf is coming up a little higher onto the beaches right now. But again, Jim, as I've been telling you, I have not heard any indication that there's been a lot of serious beach erosion. I mean, obviously there's been some with the surf pounding onto the coastline the way it's been, but no indication that it's been a real big problem. The surf is certainly rough, but not a lot of beach erosion. Some, but not a lot.
Well, typically the day would be filled, as I mentioned earlier, Rick, with hundreds of thousands of beachgoers, but just some thrill seekers out there today. Have you talked to any of them and asked them what they feel about the situation?
Talked to a couple of folks. They indicated that the surf, for one thing, was about as rough as they've ever seen it. We've had a couple of surfers stop by, and they are, of course, interested in the nice waves that are out there today, although the Highlands Police Department is urging folks not to try to surf out there because I guess the rip tides and undertow today is strong, and it is probably quite dangerous. And of course, I've been mentioning the windsurfers all day long. They've been enjoying the nice steady winds in Sandy Hook Bay across the road here.
All right, Rick, you are very close to the center of Tropical Storm Bertha right now as it continues to move toward the north, and as you mentioned, the wind and the rain and the squalls, but not a big difference like what we would see yesterday if it was a hurricane. That's for sure. That's good news.
Yes, it is. The worst conditions were earlier this morning, and again, things have gotten better for the most part since then.
All right, thank you very much for that live report from Highlands, New Jersey. Again, folks, in case you're wondering where Highlands is, on that northeastern part of New Jersey stands a place called Sandy Hook. Great day for windsurfers today in that Sandy Hook Bay because you don't have the huge breakers, but you still have the wind there. And Rick was mentioning some folks in there, but obviously I'm not pressing you to go out there. Obviously you have to know what you're doing. Let's go ahead and show you what happened in Elizabeth City, North Carolina last night with heavy rain. The latest on Bertha, the 2 o'clock advisory from the Hurricane Center. The center of the tropical storm now situated 35 miles to the south-southwest of New York. And as I mentioned with Rick, we have seen even less winds now near the center. So interestingly enough, some of the activity that's been most heavy is well east of the center now and continuing to affect New England, and we'll show you those radars in just a moment. Still moving northeast at 24, and notice we haven't really seen a change in intensity either with the winds. So still some winds up to 50 miles an hour as we've noted from the coastline. I'll look at the visible satellite imagery. Still, folks, extensive cloud cover back through Pennsylvania and across upstate New York, and under these clouds, unfortunately, the occasional heavy rain band. They're just ready to kind of say, hey, back in Pennsylvania, give me a break. This isn't our hurricane. But you'll notice it is moving out just in time for some more energy to move in from the Midwest. So it's not going to dry out completely there in Pennsylvania. Tropical storm warnings are still posted from Brigantine up to the Merrimack River, and you'll notice near the center we do expect storm surge of anywhere from 2 to 4 feet. And of course that'll be a little worse if it happens to come in near the time of high tide. That's center. The radar extremely busy, still dealing with this nice rain band back through the Poconos. Looks like a little bit of a break over Sussex County in New Jersey, but the Capital District, the Mohawk Valley, tremendously wet here across central and northern Vermont up into Maine. Very, very wet conditions as well. And look at the rain right now in Boston. Very, very heavy rain along with some squally weather. We do have a tornado watch out until 8 o'clock over the open waters. Rick would be right here in Highlands, New Jersey. Sandy Hook is just to the north of that ring. Here's New York City, so about 35 miles down to the south, we find the center. Now you'd think, okay, hey, is this thing going to strengthen now that it's heading back over water? No, the water temperatures are cold. This has had a lot of time to unravel now, and as we learned from Rick, a lot of the activity is well north and east of the center with these bands as they continue to work on northeastward. Now here's the Doppler radar out of New York City. You can't see the center as well, but you can see this one band which extends out several hundred miles from the center and is continuing to pump major moisture and rain into Montauk Point, soon to be Buzzards Bay and Narragansett Bay as well. And we're also seeing this feed some low-level winds that are from the southeast here. So another level at another level, we're seeing winds blowing across the top of that. And with these winds here, we have noted that very, very heavy rain has been falling, and you can see it here from Providence right on north into the Boston area. So just a miserable time right now in Boston with the rain and the wind. And the Doppler radar out of the same area is noting some very heavy rainfall totals. Notice in this area here, stretching from the Rhode Island shore over toward Newport on northward through Providence, just southwest of inner Boston, the maximum rainfall this thing's been estimating is 4.8 inches, and that has occurred for the last, well, 17 hours or so, and that's about it. Some very, very heavy rain, and more to come too. A quick look at the radial velocity, showing you again the wind fields blowing toward and away from the radar site. The quick change in color, obviously, blowing away from the radar site. The winds toward in light blue. And this one core here of winds along the coastline estimated at anywhere from 20 to 40 miles per hour. And with that wind coming in along with the rain, perhaps a little bit of minor beach erosion expected there. That's why you have the tropical storm warnings up. Stay with us. We'll continue to cover Bertha for you, give you the latest advisory once again.
So does the oil in your engine.
You're looking at live pictures from the northern New Jersey shore where big breakers continue to roll on in, compliments of Tropical Storm Bertha, now very, very near Highlands, New Jersey, and that's where Rick Griffin's standing. We'll talk to him in just a moment, but our coverage continues. We have the latest advisory for you from the Hurricane Center, but I want to go back and talk a little bit about what happened here with regards to the winds. There were some tremendous winds generated in gusts, especially continues to move northward now just to the south of New York City. We still see the heavy rain from Boston back through New England and even down into Pennsylvania, where some of the mountains are playing a key role in helping to squeeze out even more heavy rain. The Adirondacks, for example, the Poconos, the Berkshires, the White and the Green Mountains of Vermont. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But standing by live, we have our very own Rick Griffin, who is in Highlands, New Jersey. And Rick, we noted from the last advisory, as well as the Doppler radar, that the eye, or the center, if you will, is very, very near you. Are there any changeable weather conditions from the last time that we talked to you?
Jim, there's no doubt that the eye is very close. The sky has brightened up, the rain has let up. The most noticeable thing is the fact that the wind has dropped to, I'd say, less than 10 miles an hour right now. That's the lightest it's been all day long.
Now what's going to be interesting is to talk to you in an hour and see that now that you'll be on the bottom side of the storm, the winds will probably be offshore and they'll be picking up once again. There's another chance of rain. But Rick, could you have the cameraman pan around now that we can see a little bit better? Show us the breakers, show us what's been going on there.
Sure, Danny's going to pan out to the ocean and we can take a look at the rough seas out here on the Jersey Shore. Again, as I've been mentioning all day, some of the local folks think this is the roughest it's been in a few years anyway. And seas have been coming up all day long. They continue to get higher even though the winds have slackened off. The real good news with this rough situation has been the fact that we have not heard about any significant beach erosion. At least that's what they're telling us. They're going to, of course, assess the situation further after the seas drop down a little bit. And the good news today has been that with a strong onshore wind, the tide has been going out. If it had been the other way around, tide coming in with the strong onshore winds, it could have been a different scenario, but it turned out okay.
Yeah, and now at this point, especially for Highlands, the winds should be shifting, if anything, offshore as you'll be getting on the backside of the system.
That's true.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Again, folks, Rick Griffin from Highlands, New Jersey, reporting in on the latest with Tropical Storm Bertha. The center of Bertha is sitting right over him, or very close to him at this time. We just received word the coastal town of Surf City, North Carolina. As you look at the 2 p.m. advisory, I'll read this to you. The coastal town of Surf City, North Carolina is reeling from Hurricane Bertha. Police Chief D.H. Jones says his town has been devastated. Jones says the storm's eye cut right across Surf City, doing far more damage than Hurricane Hazel in 1954. And I would like to note this, Bertha came in as a Category 2 storm. Hazel, I believe, from talking to John yesterday, was a Category 4 storm. So this is just a tremendous, to hear about this. We've heard reports of piers that have been blown away, not only outside in the ocean there, but also inland from the barrier islands. North Carolinians obviously measure a lot of their damage from hurricanes from Hazel because that has been the worst one that has affected them. We take a look at the latest advisory. You can see winds still 50 miles an hour. We still got some squalls there as the eastern side of the storm and its most potential side continues to flow over the frictionless Atlantic Ocean waters. And of course you start to encounter some of that friction once you hit the coastline here. And we have had reports of some very, very gusty winds around Montauk Point with the squall that just worked through a little earlier on. Notice again the backside of the storm, seeing the clearings conditions south of the Chesapeake Bay, but still this swirl, which is right near Rick right now, representing our tropical storm as it continues to move on off to the north and east. And we expect it to continue that track. And with that, of course, the copious amounts of rain. And what's interesting, folks, is you got to think of the topography here a lot more than in eastern North Carolina because you've got these Green Mountains, which extend down through Vermont. We got the Berkshires, we got the hills of Connecticut. You have, of course, the White Mountains in through here. You have the Adirondacks, the Catskills, and the Pocono Mountains, the hills in northwestern New Jersey. So you have a lot of topography, and with a predominant east-southeast wind, the kind of water that you can get on the eastern side of those mountains has been heavy. And as a matter of fact, we've been taking a look at Doppler radar out of New York City, and they've been showing some of the heaviest rain has been up through that time. You'll notice again the storm very, very close to New York City, continuing to track on off to the northeast. But as we've been mentioning, it is the copious amounts of rain. Now just starting to lighten up a little bit from Allentown on up towards Scranton. That's good news. It's been raining in Scranton. It's been raining in Poughkeepsie and with these. Here's the Doppler radar out of Philadelphia, which is actually in New Jersey, in south central New Jersey. And you'll notice the center of circulation now almost heading south-southeast of Atlantic City. Here's the center of the storm, and Rick mentioned the calm there, so it's kind of moving away from him. But nothing but improvements and an offshore wind on tap to the Jersey Shore, even some breaks in the clouds, and maybe the next time we talk to Rick, he'll have a little bit more sunshine than what he's got now. Still some heavier bands of rain, though. We're looking at Brookhaven Doppler radar, and you can see the storms coming on in. This one band here has been one of the more intense bands of the morning, and now it is helping to enhance the rainfall over the Boston area, which has been heavy. This is Boston's Doppler here, located in Taunton, Mass. You can see the heavy rain here all the way out through the Cape, back down through Newport, up through Rhode Island, the Connecticut border. Not too bad right now in the Connecticut Valley. I just talked to my good buddy Bill Dombrowski in Glastonbury, and he was telling me that it's not too bad here in the valley, but there's been some heavier rain back in the Berkshires and the hills as well, as this continues to pull on off to the north. Another look at the Doppler radar of Boston. Now, this is actually the mode where it's estimating the rainfall, and you can see the time and the maximum down here. Notice the max is 4.8 inches from 0Z, or 8 o'clock last night, through 18Z, 1830, I should say, in 2:30. So this is about 18 and a half hours worth of data, and you'll notice right here from south central Rhode Island up through the south shore of Mass, we have seen anywhere from 4 to 5 inches of rain. Now, this is the same Doppler radar, folks, out of Taunton, Mass, and you'll notice here how the colors change pretty dramatically. And what we've been watching, especially along the coastline here, are these winds, which are measured in knots inbound. Of course, the farther away you get from the radar site, the higher elevation you go. But as you close in on the radar site and through here, you'll still note a very sharp gradient in these colors here, indicating, especially along the coastline, some winds anywhere from 20 to 40 miles per hour, especially in gusts. And that's what we're seeing, and that's the beauty of this Doppler.
Usually fairly weak tornadoes, not lasting very long, but nonetheless, they certainly can produce minor damage as they spiral out from some of the leading bands associated with the tropical center circulation. Speaking of the circulation, you can indeed see that there's a large cloud shield with the tropical storm extending all the way up into southern